My name is Arlan Lewis, and I'm a partner in the Birmingham, Alabama office of Blueprint Construction Council. I'm the chair of the ABA Forum on Construction Law, and on behalf of the Forum, I'd like to welcome you to another installment of the Forum's monthly Diversity and Inclusion Brunch series, featuring Jennifer Todd, founder and president of LMS General Contractors. Ms. Todd has been listed as one of ENR's groundbreaking women in construction. The ABA Forum on Construction Law is the largest organization of construction lawyers in the world and serves as a thought leader and resource to the construction industry. Diversity and inclusion is a priority for the Forum, and we consistently take action to enhance participation, inclusion, and leadership opportunities for attorneys of diverse backgrounds in Forum programs, publications, and other initiatives. The Forum offers several scholarships, fellowships, and leadership development programs to enhance diversity among construction lawyers. If you're not yet a member of the Forum or an affiliate, I invite you to join our organization and participate more fully in our ongoing programs to support the construction industry. You can do so at americanbar.org and looking for the Construction Law tab. On a broader scale, the Forum is committed to raising awareness and understanding of the vital role diversity plays in the construction industry. For many years, the Forum has featured a broad spectrum of prominent keynote diversity speakers at each of its national meetings, ranging from civil rights lawyer Fred Gray, the Right Honorable Beverly McLachlan, the first woman to serve as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, and Vicki O'Leary, ironworker and 2019 ENR Award of Excellence winner for her efforts to combat harassment on construction project sites. Recently, the Forum held a first ever national meeting dedicated exclusively to inclusion, diversity, and professionalism within the construction industry. At the core of the Forum are the principles of respect, professionalism, inclusion, and collegiality. In addition to race, gender, ethnicity, and other categories traditionally associated with diversity and inclusion, we also value diversity of ideas, perspectives, and opinions. Accordingly, through the Diversity and Inclusion Brunch series, we feature a one-hour conversation with keynote speakers who provide insight into issues of diversity, inclusion, construction, and the legal industry. Now, the brunches are held at 1 p.m. Eastern on the third Thursday of each month. Now, these programs are free and open to all members of the Forum, friends, clients, and anyone else who's interested. Pre-registration is required, so mark your calendars and stay tuned for announcements containing registration details. We'd like to thank Nick Holmes, chair of the Forum's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, for his support in the development of this series. And we also want to thank Tamara Carrington, LaShonda Williams, Colleen Hardison, and all of our Forum staff for helping to make this program a reality. And with that, let's get into our session. I'm pleased to introduce the person principally responsible for organizing today's session, our moderator, Cathy Altman of Carrington, Coleman. Cathy is a member of the Forum's governing committee and is chair of the Forum's membership committee. Cathy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Arlan. All right, it's my privilege today to give you a more complete introduction of Jennifer Todd. As Arlan mentioned, she's the founder and president of LMS General Contractors. Jennifer is a 2020 Construction Business Owner Outstanding Women in Construction finalist, and she's the first Black female business owner to be featured on the magazine's cover, and that's going to be the November 2020 issue. Jennifer is the youngest Black woman to procure a California general engineering license. She holds a BS from Georgia State University, an MLS from Arizona State University Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, and a project management certificate from Emory University. Her company, LMS, is a certified DBE, MBE, and WBE firm that specializes in full-service demolition, disaster relief, and environmental services to public and private entities across California and the Southeast. So today with Jennifer, we're going to talk about some of the barriers to diversity and inclusion in the construction industry, some tangible steps to create opportunity and access, and why increasing the number of minority-owned construction companies and skilled workers is really critical to address the shortages in the industry. We have to make the changes for the industry to thrive and arguably even to survive. So Jennifer, thank you for joining us today. We're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the forum. Thank you to Cathy, especially for helping me and getting together about this. And also thank you to Kristen Sherman for inviting me to this forum today.
Great. Well, hey, Jennifer, let's start a little bit and have you tell folks about your background and how you found your way to the construction industry.
Yeah, you know what? My introduction to the construction industry was like most other people, it happened by accident. No, I recently graduated from Georgia State University with a bachelor's in psychology. And like most recent graduates, I was struggling with what I wanted to do next. And so one night my girlfriend called and she said, "Hey, don't think about what you're going to do with your life. Just come and have some drinks and you can figure all that out tomorrow." And I said, "Okay." So we went out to the bar and I literally sat down next to a friend who I hadn't seen in years. And he began sharing with me all of the amazing things that he was doing in the construction world and the projects that he was working on. But he also mentioned that he was struggling to find someone to work in his office. Now, at the time, I was doing eBay sales and again, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I told him, "Hey, look, I need a job. I'll come and work for you." And he said, "Okay, well, call me on Monday." And so Monday came and I called him, and that was my introduction to the construction industry. I began as a secretary for a demolition and environmental company that day.
Well, so fast forward to today, and you're now the president and the owner of a firm. Share with us some of the challenges that you had when you first started up your company.
Well, I'll say this, Cathy, as a double minority in a white male dominated industry, I'm subjected to obstacles every day. Because if I'm first a Black woman and I'm first Black and second a woman, and those are two things that I cannot change and that I've accepted that are going to be challenges in the workplace. Now, the challenges that I faced when I started my company are pretty much the same challenges that I face today, just on a larger scale. I mean, oftentimes when I walk into the room, it's kind of the "why is she here" moment where everyone kind of looks around and they want to know who you are, what company you're with, are you the secretary or the admin? But for me, those are really the lighter times. It's really been the tougher times when you've dealt with serious racism. And it's just, it's not an issue of unconscious bias or microaggression. I'm talking about times where it's just been downright scary to be Black and be a contractor. I've had instances where I've been called a nigger to my face. I've had instances where we've had our fuel lines cut. We've had instances where we did work for a Las Vegas casino and we were told that we couldn't get paid because the casino ran out of paper. I've had instances where I have been touched inappropriately by someone who worked at the airport in a job site trailer. I mean, there have just been a myriad of things that have happened. So what I say is that I haven't overcome the obstacles, but instead have learned to work through them and acknowledge that that's just a part of doing business when you're in an industry where you are the minority.
Jennifer, when we were preparing for today, you shared with me the story about how you came to get a law degree in response to some of the challenges. Can you share that with our audience today?
Definitely. What people may not realize about the construction industry, or even people who are not on the admin side of construction, is about how very litigious it can be. Construction law, people know, hey, one bad project can basically cost a contractor their entire livelihood. And so oftentimes contractors are great at doing the job, but they're not necessarily great business people. And that can land you into a slippery slope of legal fees and liens and bonding issues and even bankruptcy. So when I decided to start LMS, I knew for me, it didn't matter about the experience that I had or the licensing, but if I really wanted a shot, that I had to protect myself. And for me, that meant going to law school. I knew as a Black woman in this field that no one was going to represent me or protect me the way that I would. And so I knew it was imperative to my company's success and to my viability that I had to obtain that law degree. And a lot of Black contractors and women-owned businesses, when you're starting a firm, you don't have the resources and funds. Yes, you need a lawyer. Yes, you need representation, but you can't afford to do it. And so I never wanted to be caught in that position. And another thing I'll add to that is that for me, I was lucky enough to have worked for a Black company. So I had unfettered access to seeing the trials and the tribulations that Black contractors go through. I've seen companies attempt to starve us out, or, not acknowledging the scope of work properly, or not paying for a change order on time, or not understanding what a mechanic's lien and the nuances that are involved in that. And I didn't want to be subjected to that. So I knew for me, going to law school was an absolute. It was just a no-brainer when it came to starting LMS.
So what other lessons would you share with others who may be thinking about starting a construction company or working their way through upper management in terms of overcoming obstacles? And I know there's still obstacles today, but what lessons learned would you share with others?
For Black people specifically, I don't think that we necessarily overcome the obstacles more than we just learn to work through and in spite of the obstacles and challenges that are put forth. So, and we don't generally have, the people or the resources to tap into. Today is a little different than when I started in the business almost 15 years ago. Today we have social media, and that gives you access to people who are outside of your geographic region, who you can immediately tap into and reach into. So you can find out what associations they're a part of. You can join LinkedIn or Instagram, and that can kind of help people to see that there are other people like you that are doing the things that you want to do, whether it's excel through the construction industry or whether it's start your own business. Today, you have that access to reach out to those people and really make a connection.
Once you've had that access in the past, what are some of the things that people have done that have been helpful for you in terms of mentoring or sponsoring or making introduction? Do you have some examples of things that have been helpful that folks can think about doing?
Definitely. I would say be vocal about what it is that you want to do and what you'd like to achieve. For me, I started LMS pretty much out of a necessity. I was living in Encino, California, and I had decided that I was going to really dive into starting my own business. And at first I didn't really want to. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go and find a job. And I went to some of the top contractors in the California area and was basically laughed out of the office until there's just no way that we would hire you or pay you this amount, or we don't have a woman, or we don't have a Black person. They didn't say Black person, but they said we don't have women in those specific, or people like you in those specific positions at our company. And we just don't have that. That's not what we do. And so after being rejected a lot, then I just said, hey, I'm just going to start my own thing so that I can play by my own rules and not listen to someone tell me that I'm not qualified enough or I don't look the part in order to have the job.
So I'm curious, having achieved the success that you've achieved, what are some of the things that you feel like you've been able to do to help others? Based on your experiences?
Well, I will say success is relative, and to that, I'm still a work in progress. But I will say this, LMS exists because of two things, and that's because I was, one, giving access, and two, the opportunity. Had I not been given the opportunity to learn about the field and work through the challenges, I was pretty much just dumped into an office and said, hey, figure it out. If you can figure it out, you can stay. And so I figured it out. And so being able to look at all of the various things, I went from being an administrative assistant to a project manager to a field superintendent to, before I left, I was the vice president of environmental division. And being able to kind of climb the ladder and do the many facets of the business really helped me to grow and understand all the parts that are involved in construction. And so today I tell people, when it comes to LMS, what we do is demolition, abatement, COVID-19 sanitation services. but who we are is a company that's rooted on sustainable growth through community outreach. And that's why I created the program A Greener Tomorrow, which is our in-house apprenticeship program that's geared toward assisting Black men and women who are unemployed and underemployed and providing them living wages. You don't need experience, you don't need a degree. You know, we've even had cases where we've hired felons. If you can pass a drug test and you can show up on to the job site at 7 a.m., I will give you a job.
That program sounds like a very tangible way to create access and opportunity. Have you found other companies reaching out to you about how they can replicate your model?
I have, and there have been some cases where people, they want to do it for a specific project. But what you have to realize is that it has to be an ongoing thing. So I'm only as great as the job that I get, and that's what happens in construction. So for me, it's essential to find the best projects and work with the best companies because it gives my apprentices and my employees access to doing work. When we hire the people, we basically provide classroom training in the form of OSHA training and asbestos worker training. And once they finish those courses, we put them on the job with experienced workers. And so a lot of people are afraid of that aspect of saying, why, you know, your insurance, your bond is on the line. Why on earth would you do that? But we understand, hey, people grow in different ways. You know, when you set the bar, people will definitely rise to the occasion. And if they don't, they'll quit. And we have over a 70% retention rate because of that, because people want to come to work and people want to provide for their families. They just have to be given an opportunity to do so.
So we're going to come back to some ideas that you have for how other players in the construction industry can create access and opportunity. But as we were preparing, we talked a little bit about it's important to understand what's causing the problem and why we are where we are in terms of the lack of diversity in the industry. What are your thoughts on why it is that the construction industry doesn't have a whole lot of people that look like you, or me for that matter, in the industry? What's the historical backdrop to that from your perspective?
You know, I'll start off by saying this, and it's that I don't enjoy talking about race or diversity repeatedly in the construction industry. However, I do realize that now is the time. And what I mean by that is that this is kind of an unprecedented time where people are actually being forced to acknowledge something that Black and minority people and women have already known to this day. And that is that the playing field is not leveled. And we know this. And so I think 2020 forced people to have a more visceral reaction to what's going on. And I realized that being a Black woman in this industry, we're talking about an industry that generates $1 trillion per year. Yet you only have 9% of women and you only have 2% of Black companies. That's not even a real fraction of what's going on. So if we want to talk about the historical context, we have to acknowledge that Black enslaved people built this country. They're responsible for the infrastructure that we utilize today. We're talking about roads and bridges and White Houses, and the actual White House that, hey, the president lives in. Black enslaved people built that. So we have to ask, how did we get to the point where Black enslaved people were sufficient enough to build the infrastructure, but today we're being told that Black companies are ill-equipped, they're not knowledgeable, they're not insightful, they don't have the resources or the know-how to understand to complete a project of any magnitude. And so once we dial into that, we can really get to why it is that there is a lack of diversity in this industry. And it's basically in part due to systematic racism, and that is just not specific to the construction industry, but all professions as a whole. And once we acknowledge that, which I think we have made steps to this year, we can move on to say, what can we do about it now that we are acknowledging that this does exist?
So 2020 obviously has really highlighted the importance from a social and an equity standpoint, the importance of diversity and inclusion in the industry. What are some of the other reasons why diversity and inclusion is important to you, is important to the industry from your perspective as somebody who owns a construction firm and hires workers and is out there bidding on projects? Why is it important?
Well, the main thing is that we have a labor shortage. Autodesk basically said that by 2025, there's be a shortage of 1 million jobs in the construction industry. So what that means is that we absolutely have to implement diversity and we have to implement inclusion like right now. And if we don't, we're going to be in a world of trouble because the landscape of America is no longer just a white male. We need women in the field. We need minorities. We need people of color. We need the LGBT community. We need all aspects which encompass America to get into this field. And we are also seeing this shift in how employees view companies. You know, before people went for the highest paying job. Now they don't. People want to know about your culture. They want to know about what your company stands for. They want to see diversity and representation in every aspect, especially in leadership roles, in order to stay or to even come to work for your company.
So with understanding the why, talk a little bit about who and how. One of the things we like to do in these brunch presentations is to let people have useful information that they can take back to their companies or their law firms to really make a difference instead of listening and then moving on to the next topic. So you shared with me that you have some specific ideas about how others can take steps towards diversity and inclusion. Let's start first with your thought about the role of owners on construction projects.
Okay, great question. As far as owners, when it comes to owners, both Black and white, we have a responsibility to tell the truth. And a lot of times that means being honest and forthcoming about what's going on and using our voices and our platforms. When a person works for an organization or a firm, they don't have the latitude to express to the public what's actually going on without fear of reproach of their job. I don't. I mean, there's no way you can hire or fire me because, hey, you can just choose not to do business with me. And that's okay too. I'll probably never know. But if you are an owner or a position in leadership, you definitely have a responsibility to be forthcoming about the issues that exist in the industry so that we can work through them.
Jeff, I know you have some strong thoughts about things that the general contractors can and should be doing in order to make the I'll start that one over there. I'm just hoping a dog or a kid's not going to jump into my screen here. But
I'm sorry about the world of code that we live in.
With regard to general contractors, I know you have some strong thoughts about things that large general contractors can and should be doing, probably small general contractors too, on the topic of diversity and inclusion and creating access.
Yeah, I definitely think so. When it comes to general contractors, I think that they are definitely the key to sustainability and definitely growing the company and definitely growing the industry. They are the people that everyone looks to, the top general contractors and the majority owned firms. They're the people that we look to in getting things done. And what they can do is what I call the 3 C's. And that is basically to challenge, commit, and cultivate. And what I mean by that is that when leadership challenges themselves and asks the hard questions of what are we doing here? What can be done differently? And not only that, asking their employees, what changes do you see that we need to make? Or do you feel represented within the organization? Do you think that we're doing enough hiring of diverse firms? Once they do that, then they can go ahead and commit. You've acknowledged that there are some issues and that there are changes that can be made. What can you do now? You've acknowledged it. Now let's move on to the commitment aspect. And committing is basically dialing into and saying, hey, we want to make X amount of changes. We want to hire so many females. We want to hire so many Black firms and really give specific numbers even if it takes incentivizing your employees to do so, just do it so that you can actually see sustainable growth and actual tangible things that can happen. You know, construction is one of the industries where there's always something going on. So you may have a current project or upcoming projects that you can look at and say, let's get this amount of diverse firms on this specific project, and these are our goals. So you've done those two things, but the main thing is about cultivation. And really, as I said before, culture is such an essential part of a company these days. You know, if we know one thing in 2020, one tweet can take an entire company down, and it can turn into a PR nightmare before everyone comes out of the woodwork, you know, with their complaints. So when it comes to company culture, I tell people, as an employer, you're like a parent, and your employees are essentially your children, for good or bad, but so they do what you do. They don't listen to what you say. So if you've created a work environment that is not representative of Black and minority and women or LGBT community, they're going to know that, and they're going to act as the way that you do and act like it's not an issue or it's not of importance. But if you set the bar by showing and exhibiting that these things are important to the firm and to your construction company, your employees will definitely follow suit. And if they leave, hey, you know, that's not the company that they want to work for. You can find others who are willing to work for a company that ingratiates equal opportunities, diversity, and inclusion.
So if we add another C to your challenge, commit, cultivate, it might be connect. Yeah. How do contractors or owners of construction projects connect with companies like you? Do you have any recommendations on that front?
Yeah, I do. And I'm glad you asked that, because I will say this, that a lot of the firms and major general contractors have done a disservice in how they try to connect with MBE and diverse firms. A lot of times when you see interest in working with diverse firms, it's to meet a certification effort, or it's for like a startup or boot camp. And so what that does is that kind of isolates established firms like myself from working with that. As an established firm, I have bonding, I have licensing, I have insurance. I know how to do the job. It's not because I don't have that administrative skill set or managerial skill set that I'm lacking. No, I'm lacking in opportunities and access to those opportunities. So what companies can really do is shift the way that they do business. If you want to fill the void of having unqualified contractors, then you need to reach out to qualified contractors instead of hosting things that are solely geared toward MBEs that are beginning their companies. There are a host of businesses that range from 5 to 15 years, even 30 years of experience, and they have it, and they are willing to do the work, but you have to engage them in the proper way. And that could either be through social media, or that can be specific engagement opportunities geared toward MBEs and diverse firms that are established. But also you can start looking elsewhere at other organizations and schools and colleges and things like that for people who've already started their companies as well.
Jeff, are there industry groups that you would recommend that either firms or owners or design professionals look at to form connections with minority-owned companies? Are there some well-known industry groups, or maybe even some less well-known industry groups that you'd recommend where there's opportunities to network and to build those relationships?
Well, there are a lot of industry groups that are kind of cropping up and making more efforts to talk about and exemplify diversity and inclusion. You have industries such as NAWIC, which is National Association of Women in Construction. They do a lot of work. And also NABWIC, which is National Association of Black Women in Construction, which I'm a member of, and I'm on the education committee. Next year, we planned a lot of things to basically help women, and also we do support men as well, but help a lot of Black women who don't see themselves represented throughout the industry, but help them grow in the field, help retain people in the field, and kind of keep them there to let them know they have a support system but also help women who want to branch out and leap and get into their own business, to let them know, hey, these are the landmines that we were able to overturn, and here's how we can help you grow.
Great. I know you mentioned to me that you had a recent virtual conference with one of those organizations, and I didn't write the number down, but I remember being surprised at how much participation you had in a recent virtual conference that one of those groups had. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, back in, I was going to say, I guess you could say it was about the summertime. NER magazine, they hosted the Outstanding Women in Construction, but they have a week-long seminar. Generally, it's in San Francisco, but this year, due to COVID, it was a webinar. And we had about 300 attendees for the Black Women in Construction panel. And that was a significant amount because people want to know more information. A lot of times when we have topics like these, they're so sensitive and people tend to shy away from them. So this was an opportunity for Black women to express their issues and grievances and talk about their situations, but also talk about working through those issues and showcasing how, hey, there are people out there that can support you, that have been through what you've been through, and here's how we can help you.
Fantastic. So getting back to the different players in the industry, what are your thoughts? Are there opportunities for design professionals to contribute to improving diversity and inclusion within the industry, not just in their own personnel, but in other ways?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really goes back to what I said before, and that's basically challenging, committing, and cultivating a work environment that is inclusive. People like to throw around diversity and inclusion, but we have to establish that diversity is not inclusion. You know, diversity is, hey, being invited to the dance, and inclusion is being asked to the dance. So basically having a Black or Latina diversity and inclusion coordinator or safety person at your firm, that is not indicative of inclusion. That's just a token. So we've got to get away from the tokenism. If you want all of your employees to be represented, they need to be represented on each level. So if I go to your website and I see that everyone is a white male, being me, I'm going to think that you have no interest in working with a company like me. You don't have an interest in working with LMS because I don't see it exemplified within your company through leadership. Also, when you also have people even down to division leads or team leads, you need to have diversity at all forefronts, be it women or Latina or Asian, all of it, so that people can know that they are represented in their workplace and they feel comfortable going and talking to people. A lot of times the leadership, if they all are look-alike and everyone's the same person, then you can't get a lot of fluid ideas, and you definitely can't reach out to the best talent pool that is diverse because they don't see it. And people want to see it to know that they can be it.
From your own hiring perspective, can you share some stories in terms of your success where being a minority-owned firm has actually attracted both skilled and unskilled workers to your company?
Oh, definitely. You know, when I initially, before I even started LMS, as I said, I worked for a Black demolition and environmental contractor, and we did a lot of work in the housing projects in various cities. I think I've worked in a total of about 12 different states. And we were always bombarded by people coming to the gate, trying to find out what in the world is going on over there. A lot of people had never seen a Black contractor, especially a demolition contractor. So they felt welcomed enough to say, hey, how do I get a job? What is it that you do? And from there, we kind of knew that there was a desire for people to work. And so when I started LMS, I said, this is just, it's one of those things where as a Black company, we have to continue to hire Black people. I've had people that have come to work for me with zero experience, that children, 35, 40 years old, it didn't matter. And it makes me think about one person in particular. When I was working with the Atlanta workforce, and there was a guy named Barry there who had recently basically he just got out of prison, and he was about 37 years old, and he'd been in prison since he was 17. He had gone to prison for killing his stepdad because he was abusing his mother at the time. And so in order to save her, he ended up killing him. And so he was charged with murder. And after some time went by, they let him out. But I mean, I think he still did about almost 20 years in prison. And so, of course, you're a felon and you have murder on your record. No one's giving you a job. And so the woman at the workforce development basically pleaded with me to hire him. I said, okay, if he can write his name and he can pass a drug test, then we will find something for him to do. And we did. Now, he was not the best, asbestos worker, but he was very smart and he had great organizational skills. And so we were able to use him as a site monitor on the site, just basically signing people in and out, accounting for inventory and things of that nature. He was great at. And so we were able to give him a job, and he was making $20, $25 an hour with no experience as a felon. And those are the type of things that we're able to do when you are a Black company. You understand that things are different and that the playing field is different. So we're able to accommodate people in their situations. Another case, we had a girl named Latia. She was a mother of 3. She had issues where, she had to be gone by 4 p.m. in order to pick up her children. I understand that you're a single parent, and I understand that you need to work. So if you need to leave at 3:30 on some days, or you have issues with work, or your child has a play or something, I will accommodate that because I understand that this is what you need to do. You're not only an employee of mine, you're also a mother.
Those last 2 examples you gave are ones that it seems to me that even non-minority owned firms could also put into practice. Are there other thoughts or ideas you have as to, I can say at our law firm, we don't have the diversity we would like to have. We have lots of conversations and strategic planning about how to become more diverse. And I think the commitment is there, the desire is there, but I can't give you a long list of successes. So any other thoughts that you have other than the culture issue, which obviously is critical, but other ideas that you have for attracting diversity to your company?
Yeah, I think that what we can do as leaders is basically continue to speak up and acknowledge and say, hey, we're in a board meeting, there are no women here. Why are there no women here? Hey, I think that the next person should, we should look at other people other than, what we normally go after, but being vocal. And it's not even so much as a race thing. I think that anyone who sees that there is an issue or sees that there is a lack of something, that's the time to speak up and acknowledge, hey, that there are some disparities here. Why haven't we had a female board member in 20 years? Why have we never had a woman who was a leadership role or a vice president or the CEO of a company, especially when you're talking about companies and organizations that are national and international? There's no way that you can say that you can only find a white male to fill this role if you're in Chicago or DC or San Francisco, because there are just a bevy of cultures there. So you have to say, are these things being done systematically, or does no one notice that there is no diversity? But also to encourage people that diversity is a good thing because it brings about fresh ideas, it adds to the bottom line, and everyone loves that. So that's always a good thing. But you can really, really grow your company and really, really add to the culture of your company by just, being an ally and coming forth and bringing it up. A lot of times, that's all you need to do is just say something and people will begin to see a change.
So we talked a little earlier about some industry groups, where contractors could find, oh no, I'm frozen.
I can see you.
You can see me? Okay, I'm frozen in my screen. So Jennifer, how can groups like the American Bar Association and the Forum on Construction, how can we make a difference?
Well, I think that you guys have a great advantage because you have a great pool of talented and phenomenal people that are a part of the American Bar Association. It's a very esteemed organization to be a part of. So some of the things that ABA can do, and I don't know that they don't do this already, is basically kind of extend their hands to diverse firms where sometimes you can look to people who need assistance with contracts, like maybe redlining or reviewing contracts to show them, hey, these are some things that you need to watch out for, or this is something you may want to redact from your contract, or even helping to set up organizations, whether it be a partnership or JV agreement or setting up corporation structure. That's a big issue for contractors. They don't have the proper structure, whether it's an LLC or an S Corp or C Corp, to help them understand that these are the basics of what you need and these are the incentives of why you want to be set up a specific way. So simple things like that, you know, maybe some sort of clinic or something like that that can be done monthly to help firms so that they can have some sort of support. I mean, it won't answer all of the questions, but a lot of the times that's what things comes down to when it comes to construction firms. It comes down to contract issues and it comes down to corporation issues.
Well, I don't know if I've disappeared from your screen, but my computer is playing games with me here. But, you know, we've talked about the past and the challenges. Looking forward, what gives you the most hope for the future in terms of diversity and inclusion in the industry? What do you see that inspires you and makes you hopeful?
You know, I'll say this. I am really inspired by Generation Z and the fact that they are just so ready for change and so adamant to get it. You know, I look at my younger sister, she is in her last year at Brandeis, and the way that they think and they talk, they're just like, but why can't I? Why can't you just change? Why can't we just do this? What's wrong? And so, you know, I think we're kind of getting past the days, and I feel old even saying this, that change is slow and we have to work on it. And they're just like, no, let's just start today. So I'm very hopeful in seeing the future generations that are very adamant about change and doing it very forcefully. I'm also very inspired to know what Black women are doing today, you know, to see that 91% of Black women voted for Biden and Harris, and they were able to change the complete narrative of the election, shows what power and organization and, you know, we have when getting together. Be whether you're a Biden fan or not, yeah, that's another story. But the fact that we can see how change is coming. And with this new administration, I definitely think we're going to see change. And we've already begun to see more diversity when it comes to the White House. And so I'm optimistic about that. And I'm hoping that general contractors and majority-owned firms will basically see the light and get on board and see that, hey, this is a great time to really implement diversity into your organization. This is a great time to really reach out to the Generation Z and get them into this field of construction, because construction is one of those fields where it will never be outsourced. We may make improvements to technology, or we may make improvements to heavy equipment, but the core is people. We will forever need people no matter what the trade is. And so we've got to cater to the people. And that is, hey, change the culture and improve what's going on today.
Jennifer, that's terrific insights there. And you'll have to read the chat. There's a really nice compliment in there, but there's also a question.
Okay, let's hear it.
Kelly Bundy asked, professionals who wish to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace frequently focus on the business case to get buy-in from management and the C-suite. Do you have thoughts on how to help business leaders get past the business case and appreciate the moral case for diversity and inclusion? Do you think this can be learned?
You know, no, I'm not a pessimist. I consider myself to be a realist, but I don't think that you can make a person care about something that they don't care about. What you can do is bring forth awareness to say that, hey, there are differences, there are disparities, and this is how it's hurting us. I think the best thing that companies can do is do a survey, and do an anonymous survey. If you really want to know what your employees are thinking or how they feel, put out a survey to ask them, are they happy? Do they feel represented? What changes would they like to see? Do they think that more can be done? Something as simple as suggesting that can really help open up a leader's eyes, because again, you're an employee, you want your job, you may want change, but you really also want your job as well. So something to kind of jar the awareness of leadership is what I would definitely suggest doing, if they don't want to do it morally. Because essentially, a lot of these companies, they are going to be in for a very rude awakening in the upcoming years if they don't get on board with the change, because change is happening, whether they want it to or not. So if you want to be on the right side of history, then you probably want to get on board now and start implementing the changes that need to be seen.
Great question, a great answer there. So we're getting close to where we need to wrap up, but Jennifer, we're going to share your LinkedIn information in the chat so that folks find you there. And I know you share a lot of information about the industry, about diversity issues. So go follow Jennifer on LinkedIn. And if you need to connect with her, you can do it through that LinkedIn site. So we'll share that on the chat. But anything you want to close with, Jennifer?
I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the upcoming months and the upcoming years. Regardless of what has occurred to me in my life, personally and professionally, I still believe that construction has the ability to be a great industry. And it is one where I have seen it's changed my life personally, and it's allowed me to change other people's lives. And there's just nothing more gratifying than that, being able to provide jobs and being able to provide careers so that people can change their lives and their families' lives. And so if we can continue to stay the course and really, really put forth the effort, I have no doubt that we can see immediate change, and we can see more Black and brown businesses really begin to thrive in this industry.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you again, Jennifer. I've really enjoyed getting to know you through this. So
Right.
I hope that we're talking. And I know that we're going to see a lot of you in the future, not just on the cover of magazines, but congrats.
Let's hope so. So yeah, if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, I'm going to give just a little bit of information about some of our upcoming programs. Mm-hmm. So we're going to we're going to take a break from our brunch in December, because the ABA actually has a great diversity and inclusion program scheduled. It's going to be challenges and initiatives increasing diversity and inclusion in the legal profession. We're going to have panelists who are going to explore the methods to increase inclusion and diversity in the profession through mentorship, promotion, and programming. The legal field is one of the least diverse professions. In fact, there's statistics in 2019 that show African-American attorneys accounted for only 4.76% of associates. The overall percentage of LGBT attorneys represented 2.99%. And less than 1% of partners in law firms reported having a disability, and veterans represent 1.76% of the lawyer population. So obviously these statistics are not reflective of our population, and this program is going to address that. It'll be on December 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll get 90 minutes of CLE credits. I think we're all shy of those with all of the cancellations this year. It's no cost to ABA members, so please encourage people to attend. And then we're going to reserve the Forum's brunch program in January. This has been a great series and a great way for us to continue these conversations virtually. So our next one will be Friday, January 22nd at 1 p.m. We're moving it to from Thursday to a Friday because the speaker is a sitting trial court judge, and she has a full docket on Thursdays. So that speaker will be Judge Victoria Kolakowski, who is the first openly transgender person to be elected as a judge. So that's going to be a great program in January. And then, of course, we've got the December program with the ABA. So we would like to encourage everybody to spread the word when we share that on social media. If you guys can all share it and encourage people to attend. We will see you in December and then again in January. And thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you, Cathy.
Thanks, everybody.